Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahi Tejasvinavaditam Astu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We are currently studying 6th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And so far we have learned that it requires preparation. It's unusual for somebody to be able to sit down immediately and say, I will start meditating. There has to be some formula in life whereby we deal with things in situ before we meditate. Otherwise, as I say, we'll be growling at God when we sit. And we have to take care of all the traffic noises that come in, and each person will have their different obstacles. Nevertheless, the broad preparation will be the same. There has to be a certain way of dedicating all activities Godwards, karma yoga. And if we apply also some element of devotion, we get some extra value, doing things for God's sake. So we begin the subject with karma yoga is karma sannyas. Renunciation is necessary. But then if we are to encounter the inner divinity, the inner truth directly, then we have to sit quietly by ourselves. And this we covered last week. So the 14th stanza deals with the issue of how can we develop a method. And the stanza will go like this. Prashantatma vigatabhye brahmachari vrate stitaha mana samyamya machito yukta ashita matparaha. So, Prashantatma, serene-minded and fearless. Now that's a tall order for most people. Because if you ask many people what their difficulty is, they say, we wish that our mind was more serene. We wish we had some peace. One of the greatest research subjects on the internet today is how to overcome tension, mental tension, how to get some kind of peacefulness in a very noisy environment. Even if you're by yourself in a car, there's a strong desire to turn something on, some audio thing. Listen to something. Keep the mind occupied. As long as we keep the mind occupied, we don't have the requisite serenity to do any meditation. And so all we're doing is we're stirring up. You can imagine the mind as what we describe, or Sankhya's describe as chitta, a kind of mind stuff that allows itself to be churned up into waves. We call these waves vrittis. In this regard, we follow the entire system of Sankhya Yoga. And yoga, in this sense, as a philosophy, is a systematic approach, scientific approach toward the subject of dhyan, meditation. So there, clearly, we have to follow a process. And that process means an element of self-control. If you don't have self-control, you don't have the serenity required. So being serene in mind means not particularly affected in any way. There's a great story of Swami Sharadananda, who had a friend doctor, and they were on a boat. When I say boat, I don't mean ocean liner, I mean Indian-style boat, a little rocky and so on. And on that boat, there was a big storm that arose, and Sharadananda had the habit of smoking pipe. And everyone was perturbed. Will the boat get upset? And then we're all in trouble, we're all in the water. And Sharadananda's friend got so agitated that the serene mind was just sitting there, not bothered at all, that in sheer frustration, he took the pipe and threw it in the water. What's wrong, my friend? Aren't you agitated? Aren't you worried that the boat will have upset and we'll all fall in the water? Is it when we're in the water, then I'll start worrying. But in the meantime, there's nothing we can do. Just be serene. So taking things as they are. There's nothing we can change in the future. There's definitely nothing we can change in the past. Nothing we can change in the future means, yes, if we change our way of thinking now, we'll change our circumstances, corresponding circumstances in the future. On Sunday, we went through a whole geography of the whole of existence, according to the Sankhyas in 24 categories. And what it means really is that most of those categories are a series of waves going on. And we can trace that, we can trace everything back to a certain origin, a certain source. Now, if you agitate those waves in a consciously directed way, all that condenses from waves to the waves that we see. We don't necessarily see things in waves, we see things in particles. It arrives like that. It arrives so the eyes can catch it, the ears can catch it, the skin can catch it, the taste can catch it. Otherwise, we have no way of relating to the world. Analyzed properly, it's a series of wave-like things. And this becomes an issue in science, the wave-particle duality. So how to be serene means leave the past where it is. There's nothing we can do about it. And put something useful for the future. In that way, you go on to the next item, which is fearlessness. Fearlessness comes from an attitude whereby if there are two things, we have grounds for fear. But if there are no two, then who becomes fearful of what? There are no two ways. Furthermore, if we view life as a kind of game, a series of waves in an interchange of play that we can joyfully interact with, then life then becomes something like a game, something like a sport, and therefore we engage in it with a sporting attitude. That means we don't run away from a circumstance. Rather, we run toward it. With complete fearlessness, we have many examples like this. Now, there was one meadow, which is there in England. Swami Vivekananda stayed at a certain house there, and we find a big green there, a green area. It was in that area where there was a bull running toward a devotee, and Vivekananda steps in the way to protect, like a valiant hero, to protect the devotee. And the bull stopped in its tracks, and we presume turned around. Anyway, the point is nobody was hurt. Swami Vivekananda himself relates that he may have learned this from a pilgrimage he was on, where a troop of monkeys were there. They can be vicious in a troop. And a companion said, face the brutes, face the brutes. You have to face the world just with a pure knowledge that it's only God dressed up. If we are absolutely convinced about that, then we completely become fearless, and we treat the world as a kind of sport, kind of game in which we can engage with the law of the universe joyfully. And so serene and fearless, these are qualities necessary. Then firm in the vow of brahmachari. Firm in the vow of brahmachari. What does it mean to have a vow in any case? It means we have to have a strong intention that we never deviate from. It's a sacred promise. Many people have many different promises, but they break them. There's a culture, maybe more prominently in this world than others, of people trying to please another. And that means you provide a promise knowing in advance you may or may not keep it. Isn't it? I'll give you a call next week.
Mm-hmm.
Is Irish speak for, I'll never call you again in my whole life. Yeah? I'll see you at 8 o'clock means you'll be lucky if I see you before midnight. Maybe around there. So we have to take this idea of satya, truth, very seriously. And the whole idea, therefore, of our vow is we take it very seriously. There's great confusion about this term brahmacharya. And if we take Patanjali Yoga Sutras as a textbook, a method, a manual on meditation, you'll see there in the whole series of 5 items that comprise self-control, called yam, brahmacharya features, variously interpreted as celibacy, studentship implying celibacy, studentship meaning in your ashram life, the first 25 years of your life dedicated to study. Study meaning not only you study, but you study in a disciplined way. Today I had a visitor who was part of an academic staff at a university. She said to me, one of the great problems that we have at universities increasingly is increased pressure, providing increased depression and increased suicide rates amongst students. Very tragic to see. And what would the source of that be? The source of that would be a stress in academia on learning, filling up with intellectual knowledge, and not understanding the opportunity for good citizenship. Tutors themselves don't understand it. There's no good in knowing all the skills that are available for you in future life if good citizenship isn't among them. So character building is very important, and this is why Swami Vivekananda stresses this whole idea of character building in education. Be an upstanding person, mold your character. So the whole idea of brahmacharya was building the character. You'd be disappointed if you joined in the old days, the ancient days. The academic environment was known as ashram, a forest hermitage somewhere, where your primary job is, as a student, learn service, serve the teacher and the teacher's family. The teacher and his wife, you learn to serve them. In return, they will teach you something valuable. But the main thing is, can you live in an environment of service? And so, very often, the service-orientated occupations today are more like careers, not like service-orientated occupations, nursing, doctors, for example, teachers, school teachers. The love of children, the love of evoking creative minds from within, evoking the knowledge that is already there. This is a more profound aspect of education, and drawing it out, learning the art of drawing that out. But inherently, if you take studentship as brahmacharya, you will understand it is all to do with self-control, character building, discipline, molding a certain framework for future use where you can fit into society usefully and be of service to it. Now, there are 2 driving forces that we have. Biologically, to sustain us, we require 2 things. One is to procreate the species, to continue the species, continue the original creation through procreation. The second thing is to make sure that we sustain our physical life by eating and drinking and nourishing ourselves and getting the means to do that. But these are genetic directives, and if we're not careful, we can only say that the difference between our genetic directives and the genetic directives of any other organic species is only one of sophistication and subtlety. Every animal needs to eat. Every animal has a drive to survive. Every animal procreates and generates the species onward. How are we so different? Our joy is in levels and degrees. Swami Vivekananda said, nobody can enjoy a meal with the same gusto as a dog. It wolfs it down, so to speak, like a wolf, and growls at you and threatens your security if you interfere with it. Your hand goes near the food as it's eating. The same hand that pats its head will be easily taken in one bite. So if we're sensible, we'll avoid that. We say, please eat your food nicely. I'll let you do that. I won't interfere with you. So with human beings, is that their level of sophistication? Are we more than that? So many people find their joy in art and culture. Many find their joy in puzzling out scientific problems. Many people have this bent of mind, either predominantly on the one side or the other, either in the sciences or the arts, and find their joy there. But a deeper person, somebody who goes to the end of the human potential and tries to exploit that to its deepest and fullest extent, will find their joy in spiritual life. Finding your joy there, what becomes of all the other impulses? They get eclipsed. They're like if you have dirt in a cup of water and you pour fresh water in with enough momentum, with enough vigor, it will tend to displace the mud and it'll come out through the sides. Ultimately, you only have the pure water. So in terms of purifying the mind, there's a very easy way. Fill it with something useful. And that automatically displaces whatever deleterious material is there. Cleaning the mind is really what it is. And you do it by self-control. Curbing these two urges, namely the procreation urge and the feeding urge. And that is why I say to many people in the beginning, actually the first step in spiritual life is food. Make sure your food is good, that is nourishing, and make sure the quantity is sufficient for what you require and no more, no less. So this brahmacharya is very important because without that, the nervous system gets upset in meditation, firstly. And secondly, the whole purity of the mind is not sufficiently there to be receptive in meditation. Meditation, after all, is having sufficient purity of mind so that the truth within can be reflected by itself. Like cleaning a mirror, you see your face. Or clearing away the smoke from a fire, you see the fire. Or moving clouds, moving on, and you're able to see the moon. So, firm in the vow of brahmacharya, not just practicing it, but be absolutely firm in it. But Swamiji, it's okay for you, you're a sannyasa. What about us householders? Should we not engage in loving relationships? Yes, we can do it, but control it. In terms of the number of children, Sri Ramakrishna says, after 2 or 3 children, husband and wife live like brother and sister. That's his remedy. But what happens if you have 4 children, 5 children? All right, put the ideal and try as much as you can to live up to it. That's the best we can do. But whatever it is, make sure there's a strong intention about it. And it is an energetic thing. So according to the science of yoga, is to do with what is termed ojas. That means that the energy that is normally dissipated everywhere gets gathered in and focused. And the yogic language for this is really an unfolding mechanism, an unfolding of what is called something that is coiled up energy, potential energy, termed in yogic language kundalini, the thing that is coiled up, the thing that naturally unfolds. Something you can imagine like the intertwined wings or intertwined snakes, I should say, in the medical symbols. The snakes of Mercury are there. Something like that. Is it possible that the yogis had this insight to see inside the DNA, you'll find this arrangement, this potential locked up as the strands of deoxyribonucleic acid contained in the nucleus of the cell, containing all our potential, everything that you ever were, everything that you are now, everything that you ever will be is contained all coiled up there. And our job is to uncoil it, give it a new direction. Instead of it being dissipated in the biological needs which are there, in the genetic directives that we normally live in, which every animal lives in, give it a new direction. And in so doing, unfolding all the levels and layers of consciousness of the mind until ultimately a full-blown opening is there, a full revelation is there, and we see God face to face. That's the idea of it. So firm in the vow of brahmachari, subdued in mind, that means we have control. We don't allow it just to wander willy-nilly. If you have a pet dog, you'll at least learn to train it. You won't tolerate misbehavior without stifling its freedom. You want to train a horse, there are two ways of doing it. You can either beat it or you can coax it. Much better to coax it. So, subdued in mind, he should sit in yoga. Yoga means meditation. Intense concentration. Create the conditions for that. Now, very often people say, oh, yes, I do some good meditation. Oh, I see, when do you do that? Well, I do this yoga asana. And afterwards, then what do? We have this thing called shavasana, lying like a corpse. And it's very nice because in a class, a person gives me some relaxing music or gives me some, some nice words said in a nice, calm voice. I see. And what happens? Oh, if it's really good on a good occasion, within a few moments, I'm snoring. And that's meditation. No, that's keeping the mind blank. And you keep the mind blank, then naturally you'll fall asleep. In the 1960s, they boasted 7,000 people meditate in Trafalgar Square. According to a methodology of keeping the mind blank, it means 7,000 people fell asleep. And I would think it's much more convenient to lie down and do it than to sit up and sleep. So sitting, not lying down. A certain chanting thing takes place, very popular thing, beautiful thing takes place, maybe every once a month and so on. And at the end of it, the option is given. Let us meditate. Some may like to sit, some may like to lie down. No, that's not meditation. You lie down, there's a chance you'll fall asleep. Sitting means sitting in a certain posture whereby you are relaxed but alert. So you should sit in yoga, thinking on me, not keeping the mind blank. Meditation is an active thinking process. It's there blatantly. Nobody studies these shastras to find out. So you hear all this misinformation. What is meditation? Well, meditation is emptying the mind. Swami, it's very difficult to meditate. I can't empty the mind. No, it's not a garbage can. You don't have to empty it. You actually have to fill it. Just as you fill fresh water in a glass and displace all the dirt, you fill the mind. You saturate the mind with holy thoughts. Make a direction to it. Go on a mental pilgrimage. Keep in the presence of God if you're doing devotional meditation. Practicing the presence intensely. See Joel Goldsmith's phrase that I remind you of. What is meditation? Devotional meditation. It is a song of gratitude that God is here, God is now, God is love. Imagine sitting in that environment now. A delightful attitude. Keeping company with the most beloved entity. So it says, thinking on me, it says, firm, self-controlled, and vachitaha, thinking on me, yuktaha, balanced, intent on me alone, see, the focused attention, and considering me as the supreme goal, thinking on me and intent on me alone as the supreme goal. Not only as me as an entity, you can put it in any form you like, either personal, impersonal, divine, let's put it. Thinking along the divine, thinking about that supreme goal, having me as a supreme goal, knocks out any other intention associated with meditation. Why do you meditate? Oh, to get peace of mind. Oh, to make me happy. Oh, it makes me relaxed. No, this may be useful to you, but it is not meditation. It has nothing to do with your purpose in life. So Sri Ramakrishna has this to say, when a person observes the vow of brahmacharya rigidly for 12 years, he develops a new sensory nerve known as the Meda Nadi. It is the intuitive faculty. Intricate and knotty problems of life are no problems to that person, no problems to face. That penetrating faculty makes it possible for him to intuit Ishvara as well, it being the acme of enlightenment. A wonderful statement. So there's a kind of technical description also that goes with it. Now it so happens that in the old days system of ashrama, stages of life, the first 25 years of our life being educational, strictly termed brahmacharya. The first 12 years of your life is educated at home, homeschool. Your parents are your teachers. From about the age of 12 to about the age of 24, 25, you now go into the Forest Academy, where you sit with your teacher and his wife and so on, and live there and serve the teacher in various ways and learn all the academic subjects that are due to be taught to you. It's equivalent to secondary and tertiary education. But see 12 years. See how 12 years of this is recommended. Imagine now, if after 12 years, all of those students now get a kind of preparation, a kind of awakening, because the next stage is then to go into household life and have children. Not to not have them, but to have them. But look at the preparation required. Oh, nowadays, if you had that, you'd have a very, very different statistics. I'm told that the United States of America, divorce rate is around about 54%. 54% of those people who get married get divorced. It's kind of routine now. You meet somebody and you know the ritual, isn't it? The ritual is that you start off with a relatively expensive environment. What I mean by that is you go and have tea in a grand hotel. And expensive means chandeliers. If you want to pay more money, you go into the restaurant and there they take away your chandeliers and only give you a candle. So for less lighting, you pay more. They're a funny system. And then you look into each other's eyes and so on, and you know the rest. But you see, part of that is a sales job. The sales job is like this, I show my best. See? Every animal does it. It's the men who normally have the radiant displays, the colorful displays. The women are plainer. But human life is the opposite. Well, in Western society, only fairly recently, because if you look at, I was in the, when was it, in the city hall, in the mansion house recently. where we launched the Dublin City Interfaith Forum strategic plan. And there you find these beautiful portraits of these Lord Mayors of Dublin. And it looks like they're all dressed in drag because they have long hair, wigs, and maybe a strategically placed beauty spot there, and they're dressed gorgeously, you see. So anyhow, it follows a certain biological pattern in species that the male should be like that, should be the peacock of the species, as it were. But you see, once the sale is complete, if it's not based on a firm foundation means this. Supposing you were to follow a model such as the Ramayana. Now, there's one person in this room who's really studied it and enjoys it well, and he's sitting there. If you want us to understand the merits of it, just talk to him and he'll tell you how beautiful this story is. But it outlays an ideal man, ideal woman. And so Sita represents the ideal wife, Rama, the ideal husband. And the key to that is she sees the Lord of the universe in him, and he sees the Mother of the universe in her. On that basis, they proceed. Now that gives some stability. But if you just work on a molecular basis means, oh, why did you fall in love? See, even the term is a little bit interesting. You see, you fall, right? Which means you get up, at some point in time. So why did you fall in love? Oh, her eyes. Oh, you fell in love with molecular structures? That's interesting. But you see, that will change. So what a beautiful series of words are there in a marriage ceremony, Christian marriage ceremony. When Sister Nivedita told Holy Mother Sharada Devi the words of the Christian marriage ceremony, the Holy Mother was enthralled. What a beautiful thing it was, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health. All right. In sickness and in health, you'll break that chair if you do that. In sickness and in health, see? So that means we like people when they look healthy, but when their nose is running and when they're blue in the face, never mind half dying, see? Oh, by the way, men half die if they have a cold. Women, it's just a cold. With men, it's malaria. See? So when that happens, is the attraction still there? See, if we look at things just on the surface, if we don't look any deeper, then the initial sale is gone, the attraction is gone, and then the trial and error is also over. So it's no wonder that on a superficial physical level, people fall in love, get married, have children, get divorced. And if they're foolish, repeat the process twice, 3 times, several times over, not learning. So there's a reason why there's a formula to stable marriage. In the old days, they had it off pat. They realized. And that was for 25 years. 25 years household life, have children. When they're old enough, they then repeat the cycle. And then the idea is the next ashram or stage of life, you go into the place where you and your wife go into the forest hermitage and you teach the others, teach the students. Together you do it. And then the final stage, you now realize the goal of life is now to be taken in a very concentrated way. And society will support a wandering person who only gets their food by begging. That's a traditional system. And that's where brahmacharya comes in and so on and so forth. So then it goes on. So now the whole idea of the principle of Shreyas, that is something that is good flowing out of yoga, is explained in this stanza now. So, Yunjan evam siddhatvanam yogi niyat manasaha Shantim nirvana paramam See, nirvana is mentioned here. It's not the exclusive word for Buddhism. Matsam stham adhigachati. Here now we find a very modern thing coming up. So, keeping himself ever steadfast in this manner, the yogi of subdued mind, settled mind, controlled mind, can steer the attention at will here or there, as you choose, attains peace, abiding in me and culminating in nirvana. What is nirvana? A very technical term. We can call it a negation term. The absence of something, the absence of any unsettling element. So it culminates in this peace, and here in this whole stanza, peace is emphasized, shanti. Hunger is appeased by the one who partakes of food. When you have the right food, spiritual food, then the hunger goes away, no more desires. Now, Sri Ramakrishna has something to say also about this. The one who newly visits a city must first procure a good lodging for himself. That's the wise person. Then he may roam about the city, seeing many interesting things. That's the point. Find your spiritual lodging first, and then you can safely explore anywhere you like. Then he may roam about the city, seeing many interesting things. If the lodging be not fixed first, at sunset he will have difficulties in that respect. Similarly, the person who has newly come into this world shall have to seek the everlasting shelter first at the feet of the Lord. That should be the priority. Then that person may live in this world carefree, with no worries, and go about his undertakings. Otherwise, the sunset of death will harass him a lot. See how we take death and ignore it. We leave it as a skeleton in a closet to be attended to at some later date. Only when we're forced into it. And as you get older, you see all your companions disappearing, one by one. And then it may occur to you, a little too late, oh, maybe this will happen to me at some point. Never mind. Because we assume it will never happen to me. See, in the Mahabharata, Yudhishthira goes to a lake. His brothers have gone there. And it goes to ask this question, what is the most paradoxical thing in human nature? Our reply is that death is all around me, and the assumption it will never happen to me. And we work life on that basis. So Sri Ramakrishna has that to say. Now, the next thing is, are there any regulations then that the yogi has to observe here in this earthly life? Yes, they're presented now. So you see on the board here, we've covered some method here. Now the next thing is there any criteria that we have to use? And you see the first item there is work-life balance, a very modern concept. So we think, but it's not, it's very ancient. So lest there be no misunderstanding, natyasnastu yogosti na chaikantam anastamaha nacha tisvapnasilasya jagrato naiva charjna. Yoga, that is meditation in this context, is not possible for him who eats too much, or for him who abstains too much from eating. There are two spiritual things, religious things you can do: feasting and fasting. Isn't it? So neither extreme is good. And it is not for him or Arjuna who sleeps too much or sleeps too little. We have to decide what is too much and too little. And it may be different for different people. But you see, in terms of quantity of food, there's a rule that the yogis have. If you put your hands out like this, that's pretty much the size of your stomach. Now the rule, according to the yogis, is half of this should be food, solid. The other half, 1/4, that is, one half of that half is water, the other is air. Now, if you measure it against that, and if you have a notebook handy in any given day and write down, what did I eat? Because we forget very often what we eat. Absent-mindedly, we stuff something in the head. So, taking note, what did we eat, we may surprise ourselves. And what is the greatest difficulty in many Western countries to do, and Ireland is fast catching up, it may have taken over by now, and that is obesity. And obesity in children is a big problem here. Children are malnourished. There are two types of malnourishment. One is caused by overeating, another caused by undereating. Starvation is of two types. They're all to do with nourishment. So take stock of what you're eating, because you may discover something psychologically important. That people are eating because they require some kind of psychological comfort. They're not happy. Or it may be that they're just doing it absent-mindedly, or it's a habit. Under the guise of loving motherly kindness, you'll find mothers insisting that you eat this. Italian mothers, Irish mothers, Indian mothers, all do this. I learned long ago that if you say, no, it's fine, in English, then your Indian host will pile more food on because it's fine. It must be more, must be much better. See? And you have to put on a stubborn look and put your hand up. Still, they think you're just being polite. They'll still put food on or attempt it. What is the repercussion of eating too much? Repercussion is general health problems. Because you see, whatever we take in, the human body only assimilates the essence of it. And by mass, will want to take off the majority portion of it. And that stays in the body and creates all kinds of diseases and problems. Then when you sit for meditation, your body is disturbing you. So there has to be some kind of balance. Now you see, later it will also say recreation. We should have a work-life balance. We should have balance in all things, eating, sleeping, and so on. Some people sleep too much. What is too much? I don't know. There's a saying that tells us that 8 hours, the saying was before any political correctness to do with gender came in, I suppose. 8 hours for women, 6 hours for men, and 10 hours for fools, I think. I think that's the thing. Or it might be 7 hours, 6 hours, and 8 hours. I don't know. But it just depends. The most tiring thing that you can have is anxiety. Anxiety is tiring. Because anxiety is consternation about the future. It's associated with pressure. So don't do that. You're doing it to yourself. Don't do it. And probably to others around you. If you're irritable, you're not pleasant company, and everybody takes on the disease. Purnananda said, if you're in a mood of depression, lock yourself in your room, don't spread the disease. So eating too much and eating too little, don't starve the body and don't eat too much. It's a very serious thing which is put in the stanza. And sleeping too little and sleeping too much. Some people tell me, I feel constantly tired. Then my next question is, so now, how much sleep do you get? Different way of asking it is, what time do you go to bed? And what time do you get up in the morning? And if the answer is, it depends. Sometimes 11 o'clock, sometimes 2 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 10 o'clock. and getting up sometimes 5 o'clock, sometimes 7 o'clock, sometimes 6 o'clock. Well, do you think that, are you surprised that you feel a little jittery and you feel constantly tired? No regularity in this. The whole purport of this is regularity. Regularity in things that you eat, regularity in sleep habits, regularity elsewhere in meditation. You see, if you eat at a certain time in the day, the body is sensible enough to release gastric juice at that time, reduce saliva at that time. When it releases that at that time, then digestion goes well. You're meditating at a certain time, the mind is nicely prepared for it. It becomes easier.
Swami, where does shift work come into that? Would it be better not to take shift work?
Ideally, yes. Yeah. Ideally. Of course, practically speaking, there are people here in this room who have to, who have to take on shift work.
But there's a cost for doing it.
There is a cost for doing it, because when the sun goes down, our eyes go down. When the sun comes up, our eyes open. And that's the natural way of things. But, we have to get into certain habits. So we take stock realistically, what can we do? And if we can have a pattern, knowing the night shift and knowing the other various shifts, then we try and establish some pattern within that. That's all we can do, best we can do. So Sri Ramakrishna says, eat sumptuously in the daytime, but let your food at night be sparse and easily digestible. You see, today we're left with a family situation whereby the main meal is in the evening. And people with health difficulties, you have to say, ideally, you really need to have your main meal in the day. Some cultures will have it at 10 o'clock. Other cultures will have it 12 o'clock. Other cultures will say, we have a sandwich and gather around and have the main meal in the evening. Well, sometimes, practically speaking, there's no way around that. But make sure you have it early enough. Having a food at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night, a big meal. Imagine now when you sleep and all your energy is at its lowest ebb, the body is trying now to cope with that and digest all that food. And much of it is wasted. Then he continues, a sadhaka, a spiritual practitioner, ought to help himself to that food only which is not heating to the body and exciting to the mind. Now, there's much debate about what is heating to the body and exciting to the mind. But later on, of course, Sri Krishna gives us some good model for what is sattvic food, what is rajasic food, what is tamasic food, things which are stale. Well, then we can identify many things which are stale. Bread is stale, even though it's fresh, because we use yeast. Stale means fermentation. We put fermented stuff in there. So if you think that that qualifies as tamasic food, then think of it very carefully. Oh, yogurt is very fine. Well, yogurt is stale food in a sense. Yogurt requires fermentation. Yogurt requires a certain bacterial culture. When milk goes sour, then you have buttermilk and you have sour. So we have to think of these things. Rajasic food, things which are pungent, things which heat the system. There are many versions of hot food, things which are burning. I hear some people say, oh, when I go for spicy food, it must be very spicy. It must burn my whole insides out. Right, okay. Fair enough. You make your own decision on it. What is sattvic food? It is food that gives you vitality and health. It is food that is in its natural state, gives you vigor. What would the natural food be? Things that appeal to all the senses would naturally be healthy food. Your ancestors would have found it out. I often joke, they may have formed a line in a forest and pushed somebody in front. There's a berry. Eat it. See what happens. If you drop dead, we won't eat it. But if you're jumping up with joy and you don't fall down dead, then you take it that it's good to eat. Maybe they did it that. But instinctively, they would have known what was good to eat. Things that appeal to the sense of smell, touch, texture, taste, flavor. All of those things would be appealing. And fruit is the natural appealing thing. Anyway, we have our own ideas about that. We won't go on about that. And what are they? What are they that conduce to yoga? They are delineated. So it goes on the subject. It says, Yuktahara viharesya yukta cetstasya karmasu yukta swapna bodhasya yogo bhavati dukkha. For him who is moderate in eating and recreation, see work-life balance, and recreation. It says don't take life so seriously that it's all work and no play. But be moderate in everything. Don't work 16-hour days. Moderate it. So say if your employer takes you, and it gives you an overload of work and you're working 10-hour days, 11, 12-hour days, no time for other things, leisure or family life, then either you're under-resourced or you're not efficient. One or the other is the case. Temperate in his actions, who is regulated in sleep. See? One who is moderate in exertion in actions, yukta, chetasya, karmasu. Temperate in his actions, who is regulated in sleep and wakefulness, yoga becomes the destroyer of pain. We have to take this very seriously. Dukkha, destroyer of pain. Physical exercise, as much as spiritual sadhanas, is incumbent on the yogi. Keeping the body healthy. If you think that this body is an elongated city and belongs to God and not you, then it's incumbent on you. It's to keep it healthy. If you have a car, it's your job, your responsibility to keep it in good shape. When maybe it's said that the yogi is an adept in meditation, clarification comes, and then we leave that off because it's past 9 o'clock here. Yada viniyatam chitam atmani eva vatishtati nispraha sarvakamayabhyo yukta itya uchate yata. When, that is yada, the disciplined mind rests in the self alone, in God alone, in the internal, infinite, invisible, alone, free from desire for objects, then is one said to be established in meditation or yoga. We'll pick that up and expand on it next week.
Sorry, Swami, would you read the last line one more time?
No, we won't do it next week. Next week is Christmas Day. So it'll be the week after.
Just that last line, Swamiji, could you read it again, please? Then is the yogi one.
Nispraha sarva kamebhyo yukta itya uchate tadha. See, so from all desires, when one is free from all desires for objects, then is one said to be established in yoga, in meditation. Otherwise, in meditation, you'll be desiring a result in meditation. Why are you meditating? Oh, I'm very disturbed. Why? I'm not achieving anything. Well, meditation is not there for you to achieve anything. It's for you to be established in the presence of the self, practicing the presence of God while sitting, delighting in his company, steering the mind increasingly toward that stability, which we call Atman, self.
Sorry, that line in relation to this, in the internal infinite alone, what was the rest of that? What was the rest of that line you get? in the
I have no
internal,
idea what I said.
in the
But-
internal infinite alone.
Hmm.
I missed it. The end.
Beyond the recording.
Yeah. You see, if we feel one with that entity, then there's no expectation about it. There's just a feeling of a continuous thing. Continuous is the wrong word because it's set within a time frame. Indescribable sense of being. An eternal present moment. That's the idea. With no other desire coming to you. So being at one, where knowledge, knower, and process, we all merge into one thing. That's the whole idea. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.